People ask, how much money do you need to do infinite banking? Others assume it takes a lot of money to benefit from practicing the infinite banking concept.
And on the flip side, some people who have more money think infinite banking is only for people with less money.
What is the truth? Do you need a lot of money to benefit from the infinite banking concept, or do you only need a little money? Or is there some golden number in between that really makes the infinite banking concept work?
And a lot of people don't know what the truth is, and they act on error and misunderstanding, and they end up in trouble.
The truth is important, and what you think is the truth is going to determine how you act, and it can make a huge difference in the results of what happens.
Nelson Nash, the author of Becoming Your Own Banker, Exploring the Infinite Banking Concept, said, "We live in a world of lies." And he said that because he was driving down the road one day, and it says, he was behind a semi-truck, and it said, this truck pays $18,000 some $100 of taxes every year. And he would say, lie. That truck doesn't pay any taxes. It's the consumers that buy what that truck is hauling that pay the taxes. It's how we look at things, how we think about things, what our understanding is will change the way that we perform and act in life.
There's another question. What is a lot of money?
Bill Gates might feel broke if he had $10,000 in his bank account. Other people would feel wonderful if they had $10,000 in their bank account.
So it's really not about the amount of money that's important for the infinite banking concept. It's the concept itself and how the banker, the person, how you handle the money that you have.
When we're thinking about how much money you need for the infinite banking concept, I don't think so much about that as I think about the fact that somebody needs to be making an income and they need to be saving something. They need to be keeping something out of everything they make. They can't be spending everything that they make. If they have those two things in order, then they can probably benefit from the infinite banking concept.
So regardless of what someone is making, if they'll keep part of it, the infinite banking concept will work for them.
Yes.
And that's so true. Many people get confused and say, well, I can't do what so-and-so over here is doing. Or this person says, well, that's such a little amount, it's not worth my time. I have such a higher income, or my needs are greater than that. You've got to start where you're at. You talk about that in our book, Prescription for Wealth, Michelle, the last chapter. Where are you? You go into a mall, or you used to go into a mall before they had apps that map out the malls, and they had these little kiosks that said, you are here, and you could look and see, oh, I have to go here, here, and here to get to the restroom or to get to Nordstrom's or to get to Macy's or wherever you were going. And people don't know where they're at because they're always looking around, comparing what other people are doing. The truth is you have to start where you're at, not where someone else is at.
A lot of people are looking at where everyone else is, but they don't necessarily like where everyone else is going. And that becomes a problem too. And well, you start feeding off that relative information, and all of a sudden you've lost sight of the truth.
That's interesting how you bring that up. They don't necessarily want to go where other people are going, but they also might not know where those people are going because false information is spread all the time. I'm thinking of the 401ks where, in 2021, they were like $142,000 average balance in a 401k. And then in 2022, there was a huge loss, went down to $112,000 as the average. But then just in 2024, they said, oh, it was a great year. It was up 20% from 2022. Well, that still didn't get you back to where you were in 2021.
So getting started with the infinite banking concept, it's important to look at your income and what you're saving, and that can be a good guide for where to start. But you also need to keep in mind where you want to end up, because you might need to make some adjustments along the way, or you might need to be a little bit more aggressive with your saving depending on where you want to end up financially. And the nice thing about like whole life insurance is you get an illustration that shows you pay X amount, this is where you will be. And so you then can see, oh, if that's not where I want to be in the end, I'm going to have to make some other commitments along the way to increase where I'm going to be in the future. And then, of course, with the infinite banking concept, by financing things, that allows you to get more money into your pocket over time much more quickly than if you didn't use the infinite banking concept.
So I hear you saying that really we need to be thinking and have a desire to get someplace. We have to plan. We have to think different. And again, Nelson Nash, the author of Becoming Your Own Banker, said the way people think about things will determine the actions they take. And he even went so far as to say, look, whole life insurance has been misclassified because people think of it wrong. They think of it for the death benefit instead of for the financing capabilities it will provide. He says, if you really wanted to classify whole life insurance the way it should be a banking system with a death benefit thrown in just for the fun of it.
Yes, and in the seminar that Nelson Nash used to do, he would give a pop quiz. And here are the questions. How long did the 100 Years' War last? Which country makes Panama hats? From which animal do we get catgut? In which month do Russians celebrate the October Revolution? And there's always some tittering because people realize the obvious answers to these questions are probably not so obvious. He goes on, what is a camel's hairbrush made of? The Canary Islands in the Atlantic are named after which animal? What was King George VI's first name? What color is a purple finch? Where do Chinese gooseberries come from? And what is the color of the black box in a commercial airplane? So we get this quiz to demonstrate that things are not what we think they are, and they're also misclassified.
I've been through that seminar multiple times, and I don't remember the answers to all these questions.
Okay, so how long did the 100 Years' War last? It was 116 years.
And what is the color of a purple finch?
It's crimson. The country that makes Panama hats, do you remember that one?
I think I do. Ecuador, isn't it?
Yes, yes. Chinese gooseberries actually come from New Zealand. They're what we commonly know as kiwi. And the color of the black box in a commercial airplane, I remember how Nelson
remember
even
that
said
one.
that. Okay, how did he even say it?
It's orange.
Of course. He always added that, of course. So he gave this pop quiz to show us that what we think we know isn't always necessarily so, and that things have been misclassified.
So we really have to have a desire to find the truth, or we'll be misled by classifications that are really misclassifications. And then we have to have the ability to determine what is the truth. Is that really the truth that someone's telling me? Or are we going to be fed a lie because we don't have enough knowledge and enough discernment to determine what the truth is? And then once we know that, we can push on and discipline ourselves to act in accordance with the truth. And that's what makes the infinite banking concept work. It's not about how much money. It's how much desire, determination, and discipline you have to make the concept work for you.
Those 3 Ds that you mentioned, desire, determination, discipline. I like the way that you often explain that. You say desire is God-given. It comes from God. You could actually, you look back at the root words for that, Deo Sire, comes God-given. And the determination part, a lot of people never get around to deciding to do anything. And so they get cooked by procrastination. Mm-hmm. They never get there. So when the first 2 are in order, though, you do need that third element. Discipline's not the dirty word that so many people think of it as. It can be a very good thing and produce a lot of good fruits when we use it in the right way.
Moving to Indiana, all of a sudden my Facebook feed is filled with Larry Bird stuff. And Larry Bird couldn't jump, and he was slow, but he was one of the most valuable players the NBA has ever produced because he was so disciplined. And he was determined he was not going to be beat. And it's just neat to see the things that he was able to accomplish with the Celtics and then later on as a coach because he was so determined and he was so disciplined at what he did.
Another thing Nelson Nash talked about was the arrival syndrome. where you think you know everything there is to know. And we illustrate that by, drawing a circle about the size of the dime. And if this is all that you know, then you get exposed to things that you don't know. And so you think there's a limited amount to what you don't know. But let's say you know a little bit more, and suddenly you realize that there is a lot more that you don't know. And that's true with successful people, is oftentimes as they learn, they realize there's a whole lot more that they don't know. But with the arrival syndrome, we think, we understand it all and there's nothing more I really need to know. And that can limit what people can learn and do and put into action.
It limits their success in life because, the old saying is a big fish in a little pond. If you're a star athlete at a school that's got 70 pupils and you get dumped into a college that's got 4,000, you might not be such a big star anymore. The same thing in life. If you're very successful in a very small town and everyone looks up to you and you go to the big city, things are a little bit different maybe. And when we start playing with the upper class, income class, what was middle class wealth is nothing to the upper income class as wealth. And so we don't need to be comparing ourselves all the time. We just need to know what we don't know. Be aware of it. Be humble. Because once we reach the arrival syndrome, that's where our growth stops.
And we want to be ready to learn things and to do things that are productive.
This all reminds me of a quote by Will Rogers. It says, "The problem in America isn't so much what people know, it's what people think they know that just ain't so."
One of the other things that prevents people from moving forward with the infinite banking is maybe they've had a bad experience with life insurance. My mom had a really bad experience driving when she was 16 years old and dating my father. He was teaching her how to drive, and they were going down a narrow road where a narrower bridge was approaching. And my dad, from the right-hand side of the road, thought she was going to miss the bridge, and he reached over and grabbed the steering wheel and helped her go into the ditch. And they ended up rolling the car. It was my dad's parents' car, which didn't make it any better. Fortunately, neither of them were hurt, but the car was totaled. My mom never drove after that. She had a bad experience. Well, I shouldn't say she never drove, because when my brother and I were teenagers, we took her down a country road. We got out and said, "You got to drive home." So she could still drive, but she refused to step out and do that for 30-some years of her life simply because of that bad experience.
Now, I want to back up there. You didn't just abandon her. You got in the car, but you made her drive because you wanted to see her drive.
That's right. And it was a stick shift too. So she did well.
Oh,
and
wow.
She got home. And a lot of times people get shot down because they're doing something that nobody else is doing, and everyone ridicules them and they get a bad taste on it. Or maybe they get involved in something and it doesn't work out the way they thought it should. And they go, "Oh, I'm just staying away from that forever."
When we get back from the break, we are going to talk about people who have had bad experiences with the infinite banking concept. That's up next, right after the break.
Policy design is critical to having cash value early in your policy and having it grow quickly. Regular whole life insurance starts out with little to no cash value and a relatively high death benefit. But Nelson Nash, the founder of the infinite banking concept, said, "Your need for cash during your life is greater than your need for death benefit." That's true. So if you design the policy differently with a paid-up additions rider, you can bring that cash value up sooner and cause it to grow better and reduce the death benefit a little bit. This is good because your need for cash during your life is greater than your need for death benefit. Over the years, the cash value and the death benefit are going to grow in a well-designed policy like this until your death benefit is actually higher than it would be in a regular whole life insurance towards the end of your life, which statistically is when you're most likely to need it. That is a win all the way around, and that's the way we write policies here at McPhee Insurance. If you want a well-designed policy that's designed to have cash value early and have its cash value grow quickly, there's two ways you can get it. You can get it from us here at McPhee Insurance. That's the way we write policies. Or if you have an insurance agent you know, like, and trust already, then you can use our resources that we publish on McPheeInsurance.com and on YouTube, McPhee Insurance, to learn how to read a whole life insurance illustration, how a good policy should be designed, and you can use that information along with the agent you know, like, and trust to write a policy that will work for you. And once it is all set up and ready to go and you're ready to purchase the policy, if you want to double check it, you can use our insurance review service and we'll let you know if it's a good policy or not. It's well worth the $75 to have that peace of mind. If you want good life insurance or you want your life insurance reviewed, you can contact us by phone at 702-660-7000 or by email. Our email is team@mcpheeinsurance.com.
One of the most recent examples that we have of someone having a bad experience with the infinite banking concept is Robert. Robert was 28 years old when he bought a policy. I have that policy right here in my hands. And he paid premiums on that policy for 28 years. So he was 28 when he bought it, paid it for 28 years. And he'd paid in over $44,000 and had just about $16,000 of cash value in that policy 28 years later. The difference between 44 and 16 is 28. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, we got a 28.
That's 28 three times.
What's the importance here? That's not the importance at all. The importance was he lost $28,000 thinking that he was doing the infinite banking concept, but he had been misled. He had not had accurate information when he bought this policy. This policy will never work with the infinite banking concept. And so we were able to help Robert roll the $16,000 he has in this policy into a brand new policy where he will only pay premiums for 10 years now, and then his premiums will stop, and he will recover the money he lost, and he will be able to use the cash values in that new policy to fund the infinite banking concept.
And when he's done paying those 10 years, he'll have more money in the policy than what he paid for. Is
That's
that right?
correct.
And the death benefit will always be higher.
That's correct.
In fact, in the policy that he had, that death benefit was likely to run out. Is that right?
What was happening in this policy, it was cannibalizing itself. The reason he only had $16,000 in there is that the cost of the insurance in this policy was going up. In the policies that infinite banking concepts work with, the premium is fixed. It can never go up, but it can stop, just like the policy we rolled this one into for Robert. It stops in 10 years. He doesn't have to pay that until he's 121 years old.
When you said the cost of insurance goes up, I immediately know that wasn't a whole life policy. It must have been some sort of universal life.
It was a traditional universal life policy that was based on interest rates 28 years ago, which were quite high. But interest rates obviously haven't stayed that high. I mean, interest rates were 21% back in the day that he bought this policy, and they were running illustrations saying, look, you just have to pay this little bitty premium, and this interest rate will carry you for the rest of your life. Well, it didn't. It carried him for 28 years, and it was going to vastly deplete that if we hadn't rolled it.
So earlier in the podcast, we talked about how Nelson Nash talked about the misclassification of things, and we had that little pop quiz to show us that even though a black box in an airplane is orange, it's misclassified. This universal life insurance is really misclassified because they call it permanent insurance. Mm-hmm. But it's only permanent if the market does something fabulous or you reach into your pocket and pay out more money than what you'll ever receive in the death benefit. So universal life is really a misclassification of permanent insurance. If you really want permanent insurance without premiums increasing, you want whole life insurance.
And not indexed whole life, which is now coming out on the market.
Yes, in fact,
They have different flavors of this universal life. It keeps rearing its ugly head up, and people think they're doing infinite banking if they have one of these policies. In fact, some of the lines that we have heard agents use in marketing these indexed universal life insurance policies is it's just like whole life, but better. It's a nice sounding catchphrase. It sounds good if you don't know to look under the hood and what to look for.
It's not the truth,
Not the truth. It's one of those lies that we live in the world of lies, like Nelson Nash used to say. That's one of those lies.
It's like the old variable whole life insurance policy. We ran into one of those early in our career of a gentleman in the southeast part of the United States, and he had been paying on it for years and years too, and he was close to 70 years old. He wanted to do something with it. Well, at that time, it was too late to even roll him into a good whole life policy. So we have to know what the truth is. And the truth is the infinite banking concept works best with participating whole life insurance.
All of these misclassification errors, they cost people time. Time is not something that they get back. They can maybe salvage what they started, maybe get started on a different track, but they're always starting at that time whenever they've recognized that misclassification. What is the best way to avoid misclassifications?
Well, I think part of it here is that you get knowledge. That's just what this podcast is all about. That's why we give free consultations to people to expose them to the truth. Read Nelson Nash's book. Read Prescription for Wealth. Read Winning Your Financial Game. Read the books and the resources we have on our website. Watch our YouTubes. Listen to past podcasts. We talk about all the things that make infinite banking concept work. We try to make sure that the truth is there so you can compare it to what you're being told outside, because there's a lot of marketing that isn't what you think it is, just like Will Rogers. What you think just ain't so sometimes. So compare it with the truth.
So getting the understanding, reading things, listening to things, all that is good. But until someone takes action, it's not doing anything. So I would also say do not procrastinate. I received an email from someone, her husband is 65. We had a discussion a few years ago. Now, things are very narrowed down into what he could have as a 65-year-old because he didn't take action earlier. She sent me an email. Is there any way we can roll back time? Please get the truth, but don't procrastinate because you've got to get started if you want the benefits.
Time is a very important element. I'm thinking of Dorothy, who didn't give the infinite banking enough time.
Oh, sure.
If you put money into a bank and you're trying to save up enough money to buy, a down payment on a house or a new car or an RV or a vacation home, and you don't let it compound long enough to make that down payment or to make that purchase, you're going to be disappointed if you go and take all your money out.
Yeah, so Dorothy, she came to us. We got her a great policy. She was excited. She paid for several years, and then all of a sudden she scratched her head. She didn't remember why she was doing this, and she decided, well, I really want to surrender the policy. And so we showed her, you just pay another year, you're going to have more than what you've ever paid for it. And that means that anytime you make a premium payment after that, you're just going to have more cash value. It's how much is your insurance costing you anyway at that point? She just couldn't think through that. And so she gave it up. And so she walked away with less than she paid for the policy. She did have insurance for all those years, but now she has nothing. So
that would probably be classified as a bad experience with the infinite banking concept. And yet it wasn't a bad experience because of the policy design. It wasn't a bad experience because she didn't pay the premiums. It was just simply a bad experience because she wasn't patient with the process.
She wasn't disciplined.
Maybe she forgot why she had done it.
She wasn't disciplined. She did not take the knowledge that was provided for her and discipline herself to even implement the infinite banking concept. She was just paying premiums on a whole life insurance policy. And the infinite banking concept is not a product. We use a product to practice the infinite banking concept with. And when people don't practice the infinite banking with the policy that they have that is designed well for it, they can become disillusioned and stop because they don't understand what's happening. So it takes the discipline to actually take action once you buy the product that is going to help you become your own banker.
Another reason we see people have difficulty with the infinite banking concept is they try to do too much too quickly. This is even something Nelson Nash talked about in his book. People get excited about the infinite banking concept. Maybe that looks like trying to pay too much in premiums. This is something more than is sustainable for their income. Or maybe they take too much in policy loans that they don't have the sustainable income to repay those policy loans. Those are both examples of trying to do too much too quickly with the infinite banking concept, and that can lead to a bad experience.
This sounds like bad news, but in a weird way, it's also good news because all the issues we've been discussing could have been prevented with proper understanding and decision making.
You know, sometimes life throws us things that are out of our control, but all the things we've been discussing in the second half of this podcast could have been controlled if people would have thought through, made the right decisions, and disciplined themselves to act accordingly.
In summary, how much you need to do infinite banking is just as important as how much understanding, desire, determination, and discipline you have to follow through with the process. Infinite banking is possible with a little bit of money. It's possible with a lot of money. Infinite banking can make everything you do financially better. Next week, we're going to go on Reddit and search infinite banking and respond to what we see right here on Wealth Talks.